Hey, recently I've been thinking a lot about bad books, sadly, but then I realized, you know what would make a book much less bad? Well, the inclusion of gay romance, that is. Yeah, I said it. Every book would be better if it included a gay subplot, main plot, or any plot at all. And that may be not true because I don't like a lot of gay books either, but I mean, it can't hurt to try, right? So, in today's video, we're gonna explore a lot of bad books and how I would fix their plots by inserting some gay romance into it. I don't really want to say with this video that every queer book is a romance or needs to be a romance, because there's a lot of queer literature that just stands on its own. But I personally just love gay romance, so we're gonna make a lot of books around gay romance today. Starting out with a huge disappointment of mine, which was Jaws by Peter Benchley. You say, wow, how could you make this book gay? I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna cut all the town drama. I'm gonna get them on the sea as fast as possible. These three men in this cramped ship. And they're just gonna get closer, that tension all in this confined space with the tension of this shark waiting outside. They need to look out for it. But simultaneously, they're gonna get bored. They're gonna share stories. They're gonna build connection. And then they're gonna defeat the shark. And no one's gonna die this time. And then they can all make out in a boat together. I don't know if it's just gonna be two of them falling in love. I don't know if it's gonna be a threesome, but I know it's gonna be freaky, and I will love it. Then we should talk about Bullet Train by Kotaro Isaka. You think, why would you change about that? Well, not even that much, except for the prince, because he's underage, so get out. I don't really want to have an underage character in there. And also, I wouldn't really change a lot about the main plot anyway, but I would insert a lot of backstory. You already get a lot of backstory in Bullet Train, but I think it's really boring. So you could cut all of that out and instead have all these backstories be about these different killers all having affairs before their actual plot on the train. So then, when they meet each other on the train, it could be so much more surprising, so much more drama-filled. Some of them could have had a fling in the past. Some of them could have a botched one-night stand in the past. Some of them could have had a full-ass relationship that maybe went really right or maybe went really wrong. There's just so much potential for drama in there. And when they inevitably meet up on the train, it's just gonna be so much more juicy. And we all get these really cool flashbacks. I don't even really care if you keep is there one female assassin or two female assassins? You can keep them in there too. Have them be lesbians, I don't know. Or maybe just make a few of the guys bi. I don't care. But just make all of the past plots be romances and then get so much more juicy, and I love that. By the way, I don't want to really say that any of my suggestions would actually make the book better. I'm not saying that. The authors obviously had an idea, and the author probably knows their own story best. And I'm not saying that I'm like a genius. I just want this video to be fun, okay? Don't accuse me of anything in the comments, please. Next, we're gonna talk about one of my nemesis, and that's Faust by Wolfgang von Goethe. And why would I make this book better? Well, it is about this creep who goes after a 14-year-old after making a deal with the devil. So what would I do different? Well, let's just cut out that 14-year-old. Actually, no, let's keep her in. Let's make Gretchen not 14, but actually Faust's age. She can be his girl best friend. And where does the romance come in? Well, I think Faust should still make a deal with Mephisto. But while they're doing all their devilish shenanigans, they should kinda find themselves attractive because they're doing all of this stuff together. They're not alone for a minute. They're always together. And through all of these adventures, they could really find an appreciation for each other. I even commissioned this art piece from my best friend, Sunny. Check her out, she's amazing, to show this shadow daddy Mephisto really getting it on with Faust, because I think that's really cool. I love that impression. And Faust and Mephisto, sadly, in the popular depictions, always are really ugly. And I think this is so much better. So I think we should really get onto writing that book. Next, I think we need to talk about Spiral by Kōji Suzuki, because that book was cuckoo bananas. And I think we could make it even better in inserting a gay subplot. And how would I do that? Well, I would just change Sadako to becoming a demon twink. What it was the really weird thing about this book, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to get spoiled for The Ring Book 2, then click to the next section. But like, he ends up doing it with Sadako, and their offspring is a genetically identical version of Sadako, and then Sadako just reproduces and reproduces even more Sadakos to where she eventually ends up taking over the world, which would be way more funny if Sadako was a femboy, right? I mean, you have to agree, right? And yeah, I don't know. I think it sounds insane, but I would also love it. So that's my idea. This next one's gonna be tragic, but I think we should talk about Old Country by Matt Query and Harrison Query. And I mean, where to change this one would probably be easy. We should just swap out the main couple for a couple of gay lovers. We can even include the guy's subplot with going to war. Like, there's so much potential for specifically these two men being haunted, because I know the hauntings in that book are specific to the valley, but I think with a little changing, because we are already changing so much about the book, why not do that too? We could just make the hauntings a little bit more individual to their experience, and in this case, the gay experience. Like, this guy was in the army. He has probably experienced a lot of harassment and trauma around it, not just in being in the army and all the trauma that comes from that, but especially being a queer person in the army, and like the social stigma around being a queer person in general, with like the couple and everything. You could do so many really cool hauntings around these, really terrifying hauntings for me, and like, that would be so great. And yeah, I think that would really be a good addition to that book. Then why don't we get onto Dreamcatcher by Stephen King? Because you know what that book is mostly about? About a bunch of guys camping on a cabin in the woods. You already know that premise is rife for what I would call gay tension. But also, there's the aliens in that book. And if you read that book, then you know that these aliens probably have to do a lot with a man's behind. And why don't we just change that, instead of bursting out of it and killing the person and being a lot of farts involved and everything, the entire experience being a little more pleasurable. And also, there's this red weed stuff growing everywhere. So why don't we just make it real red weed, like alien weed, and then we have a psychedelic alien smut experience. And oh my god, this video is gonna ruin my entire life if anybody ever sees this, but I kinda live for it. So, what do you think? Then we get to 1984, and I know I'm committing sacrilege because that book is a classic, but I don't care. I didn't like it, and now we're gonna make it better. Because you know how there is this really oppressive government that judges everything you do and sees everything you do through this weird technology, and also the surveillance of everybody like actually working for them and kind of reporting you if you do something suspicious. Well, why don't we set a romance in that system? And you may say that 1984 already has a romance. And yes, it has a romance, but a straight one, and also a really bad one. I'm telling you, Julia is a victim. Like, Winston is an asshole, and Julia deserved better, I tell you, because Winston is so stupid and I hate him, and the fantasies he has about her are gross, and he's old, and I don't know, he judges other people for being in age gaps, especially older women, but then he himself doesn't see anything wrong with it. I'm sorry, Winston, but you can go in a desert and die of starvation. But yeah, why don't we just set a gay romance in that setting? Because I think it would really be a lot of like profound things, because you could just make it about this feeling of being observed. These people not only being stigmatized by the society, but also by their government. And you could draw some parallels of how the gay experience actually like was for a long time before we went to the modern day, where we are, like, I mean, relatively accepted in society. So, I mean, there's probably a lot of profoundness to be found there, and there in the hands of the right writer. Then there's I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lois Duncan. I really dislike this book, but why don't we make it about all these people who, in their last summer, actually didn't kill somebody on a road trip, but these four people actually went cruising in the woods and met a stranger that they then had a foursome with, and in the today timeline, they're getting blackmailed about somebody that saw them, and they need to find out and keep their secret hidden at all costs. Doesn't that sound so much better? I think so, because I Know What You Did Last Summer is real bad, and my version sounds so much juicier. Then there's The Visitor by Sergio Gomez, which is the most generic, straightforward alien story you can imagine. But you know what wouldn't be that? I mean, it would still probably be very genetic, and there's probably like a lot of fan fiction stories and just like a lot of indie stories that are probably like the same premise. But you know, if the alien didn't come to like kill them and like sell their organs or whatever that thing did in that story, but instead use them in like another way, explore them in another way, have another purpose for them, I think it would be way more fun. And by now, you know how unhinged I am, so that probably doesn't really sound that much of a surprise anymore. And if this video made you think bad of me, I'm very sorry. I promise you I would never really do anything like this in the real world, talk about anything like this in the real world, and that the internet has empowered me to do this is probably a condemnation on the entire technology of electricity as a whole. And I'm sorry you saw this video, but I don't know. Then there's Cold Snap by Lindy Ryan. And this book was really disappointing for me, but you know how it could have been way better? If this woman, instead of, I don't know, this weird elk monster killing her cat and stuff, and the entire book being really badly written, if this woman, with all her trauma, just hooked up with a very hot female elk monster. Like, it doesn't have to be an elk monster, it just can be another monster of some kind. But like the antagonist of the book, whatever it will be, just let the woman hook up with it. Let her like trauma be like, I don't know, solved through that, just get explored through that, and that can be in the entire arc of the book instead of like a lot of badly written running away scenes, and that would make it way better. And for good measure, why don't we add Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by McLeod Chapman into this? I absolutely hated this book. This really thought it had a lot to say, but it kind of really didn't. And there's already a lot of really gross smut scenes in there that I kinda didn't want to hear, but you know how it could be way more interesting if this entire television virus only affected a Republican population, but like to do it not like as a cannibalistic practice of, I don't know what that book wanted to say, but just generally to do it with each other, but with definitely the same gender, because that would make it even way more fun and would expose the entire hypocrisy of that whole population thing and the right wingers even more. There could be a lot of societal commentary through that, which the actual book totally failed at, and I'm not saying that that book I'm proposing would be profound, not that any of these would be, but I'm just saying. All of this is I'm just saying. Again, at the end of this video, I have to reiterate it. This is only fun, okay? I'm not saying that my ideas are any better than any of these authors' actual ideas. Of course, I probably didn't enjoy a lot of these as much as I probably would my own ideas, but I'm crazy. And the book wasn't made for me then, probably. So, I don't know. If you like this, then tell me. If you have any other ideas like this, then tell me. If you think I'm crazy and I ruined these books and I am a horrible person that should go to jail for even having these thoughts in my brain, then tell me, because maybe I need to be in check of something. Maybe I'm just really stupid and this entire video was a really bad idea. I don't know. I liked it, and I hope you did too. And I hope to see you in another one. Bye!